Hello, I'm your host, David Newson, and welcome to Coded in Gold. This podcast explores the fractured, beautiful pieces of our modern life through compelling stories and conversations with exceptional individuals. Let's get started.
Welcome. In today's episode, I had the pleasure of sitting down with Jennifer Dazols. Jennifer is someone I was introduced to by a friend of the show, Kristen Hayden. We were connected as two LGBTQ people in the wealth management space. Jenni co-founded Modern Family Finance with her wife several years ago after leaving a career in tech. But as you'll hear in this conversation, we have much more in common than I even realized. From navigating leaving the faith we were raised in to now raising 7-year-old boys, we also discussed the documentary film she and her wife produced in 2015, Out and Around, which follows their travels over the course of a year to meet with LGBTQ activists and pioneers all around the world. There's so much juicy stuff in this conversation. So without further ado, Jennifer Dazols.
Hey, Jenni, how are you?
How are you?
I'm doing really well. Thanks for coming on. I love to start these by, and I was trying to remember how we were first introduced. Do you know the story?
A mutual friend.
Who was it?
Kristen.
Hayden?
Hayden, yes. Sorry. Yes.
Okay, she's been on the show.
Yes.
She's been on the show.
Hayden.
Okay,
Yes,
cool.
yes,
Oh,
yes.
okay,
She told
that's
me
awesome.
she was on the show. Yes.
And how did you meet her?
Kristen is actually cousin. Her cousin is a longtime friend of mine. And somehow this mutual friend, I think somehow introduced us. She's like, oh, my cousin's a queer. Kristen was kind of entering into finance, and she was coming from nonprofit, fully up. She's still, I guess, kind of nonprofit, but, and so she introduced us. And I mean, we've been acquaintances, but each time I see her, I feel like we have a lot to talk about. And somewhere along the way, she was like, oh, you should really meet David. And that's how we got
Oh, that's awesome. Cool. So this is my personal podcast, and I don't typically mix my personal podcast and work, although, I am who I am, right?
Yes.
And so there's times where the worlds collide, and this is another one of those situations.
I'd like to think I know you more personally than for work.
Yeah, I think that's true. Yeah. But while we're on the topic,
yes.
Okay, I want to know, how is your practice going?
It's going great. It's going well. It's kind of like when you take a leap of faith to make a career change, which is what I did about 5 years ago, and you're trying to build a practice from scratch without having ever done this before. You think, I don't know if it'll ever work, And so it's like we have a solid practice now. We work with 60 or so LGBT, not all LGBT, but many LGBT families in the California, San Francisco Bay Area. It's actually a really great mix of people, just like single women, just obviously families of all stripes and colors. People kind of in that 40s to 50s range, also some kind of closing in retirement, either traditional or early retirement. And we have a great team. So yeah, I mean, it's I feel solid in what we're doing, and also having a great team. I work with my wife, and then we have also 2 other amazing planners and also an ops support person. So we're feeling good.
Oh, that's very cool. Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
But David, you knew us when I was still a very shaky, scared little cat trying to start this thing. Unsure of what I was doing.
Yeah, but now you're crushing it. I think you're doing great.
Now we feel like we have something solid. So that's
yeah. That is fantastic. That's awesome. Okay. Getting started on historical background, bio, things like that. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Naperville, Illinois, which I just explained to people outside of the Midwest. It's a Chicago suburb of Illinois. Okay. And at the time, if you go there now, you'll be like, oh, it's a blossoming, relatively diverse for the Midwest. But when I grew up, I'd be there'd be 2 Asian kids, 1 African-American kid, 1 Indian kid in sure. a class of 100 kids, right? Or spread across the grades. So I feel like a lot of my childhood, I was born in the States to immigrant parents who came here, with, luckily, like they were not like refugee type of immigrants. They had resources coming here. So, but at the same time, they also had no like family or kind of cultural bearing in the States, right?
Sure.
So I think a lot of my childhood was just trying to figure out how to make it, like, because my parents had no idea what the hell was happening. So like from a social and I think just, finding my own identity here.
Okay. Any siblings? Just you?
I have a younger brother who's like 4.5 years younger. I often wished I had an older sibling, somebody to have paved the way. And then my parents were also pretty religious. We grew up going to like the kind of this Christian Mandarin church. So I think it was kind of like the religion was tied in with also like this otherness of being immigrants there. So it was all kind of mixed together. But yeah, that was my upbringing. Stayed in the Midwest until after college. So I kind of moved around different places in the Midwest. I went to school and college in St. Louis and then eventually ended up out in the West Coast in California, in the Bay Area.
What brought you to California?
I was actually like my job at the time. Like I started my career in corporate finance and investment banking, which is like not my cup of tea, but when you're like an overachieving, feeling like I have to prove myself kind of person, you focus on what sounds like the most cachet job. And that's why I chose and went after that. Okay. So I was in their technology banking practice. And they moved me out to Menlo Park. And that was very fortuitous because I am totally Bay Area now, never leaving.
Never look back.
Never look back. Yeah.
Okay. So you landed in the Bay Area. You're working.
Yeah.
Tell me how you met your wife.
Well, having grown up in a very like sheltered religious environment, like to my knowledge, did not know any LGBT people. I mean, sex was just like evil, like this terrible thing, which I think you understand, having grown up religious yourself.
I totally do.
It's just like, you don't even think about it. Boys, girls, whatever. And so it really wasn't until like my late college that I started thinking about like, maybe I am attracted to women. So I didn't actually experience or even come out to myself till like my 20s, like post-college. Okay. And so the first person I was ever with was with another girl from church. So,
that is scandalous.
Very scandalous. Actually, it was very scandalous. And it was very like a very like tumultuous, difficult time, kind of like I laugh about it now, but I mean, I'm just like, if I could go back and see that girl, I'd be like, oh my God, this was like this horrendous thing you went through, like where we were both kind of very active in the church and leaders. So we were actively called out and asked to leave in a very public fashion. And then that was like my entire social world as well. So kind of losing that entire, again, I think you can understand like from the world you came from, like it's like your whole world, right? And then also your parents. So that all happened within 3 to 6 months. My parents finding, like me recognizing myself, kind of being kicked out of the church and my parents finding out, and I was living with my parents at the time. So it was this crazy like situation where then I quickly kind of could not live at home anymore at that point. Just my parents, my mom was like, I'm crying so much, I'm going to die. It's like, so I had to leave. And so that's actually when I moved I was living in the East Bay of San Francisco, East Bay, and moved to the city with the girl I was with. And so kind of had to find our new path there. But anyways, that was not what you asked me. You asked me how I met my wife. I don't even know how I got onto that subject.
Actually, tell the story about how you met your wife, but we're going to definitely put a pin in that and come back to it because there is a lot.
There's a lot there. All this, I think I gave that backstory because I really was spending my early 20s trying to find my own identity and finding my own community. And in looking for my own community, I joined the AIDS Life Cycle, which is a bicycle ride from San Francisco to Los Angeles. It happens over 7 days as a fundraiser. But in addition to kind of being this really amazing fundraiser, it's also like a community event where you get to, like, as a participant, you meet a lot of people, obviously a lot of LGBTQ participants. And it was on one of these training rides that I met my wife. So we were just acquaintances and friends for about a year. And then, breakups later, we kind of hung out again. And then, one thing led to another. And then I've been with her for, oh my God, I don't even know, many, many years. Like, I guess she was 30, 40, I mean, like 15, 16 years, something like that. That happened to go. Yeah.
Wow. And now it's not just you two, you have a family.
We have 2 children.
Yes.
So I have a 7-year-old boy, and I also have a 9-year-old girl. So a first grader and a fourth grader who are luckily just started school this week. So
Wow.
yeah.
He's in first grade?
We ended up, long story short, we ended up holding, because we also spent many years living abroad. When we moved back, we ended up holding him back 1 year. So he's on the older side. So we just thought, let's give him a leg up since he's going.
Well, no. You're absolutely right. I was just reading this book,
Outliers?
of Boys and Men
Oh, okay.
by Richard Reeves.
Okay.
And he basically is talking about, the state of boys and young men in this country. And there's like a real failure to thrive.
Yes.
And one of the things that he posits is that boys should start school later.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
Like Xander's starting second grade.
Yeah.
And he's going to be a very
second grader,
young
right?
second grader.
Yeah.
Yeah. After I read that book, I've kind of been a little gung ho on the whole, there's women's movement right through the country, and it's like girls,
Right.
they can, the same equality, and totally support that.
Yeah.
And it's like, yes, and we also need to make sure that boys can thrive
Right.
in their environment too. And the book kind of blew my mind because it was one of those topics that was not front and center in my mind at all. I was always feeling like, oh gosh, we have to be champions of our fellow LGBTQ folks, right? And we have to be champions of women and girls and blah, blah, blah. And then it's like, well, hold on a minute. Boys are failing to thrive.
Yeah.
We need to figure out why, because there's going to be a whole lot of, there's going to be a whole lot of people without partners potentially in the future if we don't solve this problem.
Well, that's I think happening in other countries. But yeah, I mean, I think as my son, who's growing up in a family of all women, and his sister, we all will ask him do you feel like we need to celebrate your boyhood more? And he's like, yes. I was like, I straight up okay, we will celebrate your boyhood. Because he was like, why go to be all about the girls? Because we have obviously that's on our mind. We're like, we're gonna go to see the NBA and all this stuff. And I was like, well, there's obviously yes, there is definitely something to celebrate about women and girls. And we explained to him it's because girls weren't always treated the same, but obviously for him, he also feels like he needs to be celebrated too for who he is.
Yeah. Oh, that's so interesting. We obviously have the opposite problem, right? It's like Xander, 2 dads.
Yeah.
And there's also a part of, I worry, I don't want to speak for my husband, but I worry sometimes that he gets only certain exposure to the world. And yet there's other things should we have gone to the monster truck event? Because in preparation,
okay.
Yeah, totally. If he was like, oh, Dad, I have got to go to the monster truck event, then we would have been like, oh gosh, we need to get the ear things.
Yeah.
We got to we have to prepare for this event.
Yes.
And then we would have stuck out like sore thumbs because we would have, yeah. So then it was just, anyway.
Yes, our kids are who they are. So it's an acceptance and a celebration, and learning to celebrate the differences that they are from us.
Yeah. Let's go back. I want to unpack some of the time period, because I think back my own experience. My own experience was I was just never attracted to women, from so even coming of age and, going through puberty, but there was just never a thing oh, girls, just wasn't that way. In fact, it was oh, boys, right. But then there was not an outlet for that, at all. Right. And so then it became very quickly, a feeling and an internal narrative of something's wrong with me, because everything else in my environment is telling me that that's wrong. That's sinful. That's you can just add all the, lovely things that get appended to that.
Yeah.
But I couldn't imagine having the realization, then having an experience, and then having the church push me out, all in a short window of time.
Yeah.
So for you, how long was that window? Are we talking a couple of years? Are we talking months?
Months.
Oh!
Within, maybe 6 months, Um,
Oh,
and I think for my personality or whatever, it was probably better, rather than like a slow simmer.
okay.
Just because it was like, okay, I had to rip off the Band-Aid. I had no choice. I had no choice. I had to create a new community because I lost mine. I had to create a new family because I lost mine. So it was like this, um, like, and fortunately it happened. And this is why, like, youth, I really like, if this had happened to me when I was 16, like, what would I have done? Right. Or even 18. Like, I was financially independent at that point. I had a job. I was in my 20s. I was working, so I could go out on my own. And yeah, like, I can't, like, for kids who have to go through this, it's a whole different
Oh, yeah.
ballgame, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because you're still beholden to your parents. So, and I was old enough to have, kind of just be able to stand on my own feet, and like from an emotional standpoint as well, at least to a certain extent, right?
Sure.
So I'm really appreciative of that. And then I think the second big thing that helped me during that transition is I actually found an LGBTQ affirming church, and the pastor, she was like, I mean, I should actually really reach out to her. Like, she really was like a lifesaver just to help me, and also my partner that I was with at the time, just really get through that period.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what I would have done, because it would have been so abrupt, you know?
Yeah,
But then you
sure.
also feel like your whole worldview is shattered, like what you thought was right and wrong, right?
Oh,
So, yeah,
absolutely.
you know what that is like.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean,
Right.
there's actually, I don't know, like when I reflect on my life,
Yeah.
that's one of those moments of, like sometimes there's those moments that you just don't ever forget. And you, like, I forget the details of the day to day,
Right.
but I'll never forget like the absolute feeling.
Yeah.
Because it was literally like, your world was being ripped apart,
Yeah.
or you're being ripped away from something that's all you ever knew.
Right.
Oh, I'm so glad that you actually had someone during that. Well,
Yeah.
one, I'm glad that you were able to find an LGBT, affirming
Right.
church.
Yeah.
And I am curious, like, what is that like?
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. It's probably like not, it's not, I mean, not probably, it's not something I would go to now, because it was
Sure.
basically like, it was still very evangelical. It was still very, I grew up in an evangelical church. It was still very
Okay.
evangelical. Like, the one major difference was that it was open and affirming from an LGBT standpoint. But many things it was like still pretty conservative. So it's
Okay.
not necessarily kind of where I'm at in my life now, but I think at that time, like, kind of I needed that bridge, and I needed, like, it was like it was too many shocks in the system, to kind of just also rip all of that down,
Sure,
you know.
sure. Where are you on the spectrum of faith and belief now?
I mean, that's interesting. It's come up a lot more because we have our kids in Catholic school, and you might be like, why the heck do you have that? Long story short, it's just like because of the state of San Francisco public schools and a couple other reasons, we ended up sending them to Catholic schools. It's a very good education.
Yeah.
And my wife grew up in a Catholic school, and she was like, don't worry, San Francisco liberal. At the same time, it's actually still a lot of Catholicism. So we end
Oh,
up
yeah.
having a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah.
conversations with our daughter, who's kind of like, we're praying all the time. I don't really believe in this, like, she's kind of a rebel in her own way.
Oh,
And I think I don't, I really, I guess I'm of the standpoint that, like, I just don't know. But if believing in a loving God makes, like, things better, which I do believe it does. You know what I mean? Like, if this
yeah.
is the narrative that is going to help me live, like, my best life, and it's going to help me see the world in its best life, this is the narrative I want to choose. I hope it's true. It might not be, So it's like, I want to believe in a loving God, and all right, like, whatever you want to call it, God, universe,
Sure.
entity, whatever,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But I kind of like a lot of the what's right and wrong, what's it, whatever. I'm just kind of, oh no. Can we just focus on the things that we know are for sure right? Like, which is like love and compassion and that's already hard
Yeah.
enough. But just focus
Yes.
on those things, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
like, so that's where I'm at. How about you?
Oh, um,
Like, how are you raising your son? I'm curious.
oh, um, he does not go to a Catholic school. He goes to a private school, but
Uh-huh.
for the same reasons. I mean,
Yeah.
we left San Francisco to start our family here because of all of the.
Yes, exactly.
We
You know
were
what I
just
mean.
like, I
Yes.
don't know how we're gonna make this work here,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah.
but I completely agree with you. Like, there are times where it's funny that you say God, the universe. I will talk about the universe all the time, right?
Yeah.
Oh, it's interesting how, like, the universe provides, I'll
Yeah.
say sometimes, right? Right. Where it's like, there's, some things that, it's like the synchronicities,
Yeah.
that happen in life. And you're just like, oh, well, that's curious.
Yeah.
And I wonder why it happened with this timing. And at the end of the day, I'm glad that it happened. And even with my own business now, it's like there are sometimes people enter your life and you wonder if it was for a reason or not, right? And for me, it makes me feel better and more connected to the world when I think that, maybe this person did cross my path for a reason today.
Right.
And I'm okay not knowing the exact reason, right? Like, that's okay. And it's up for me as an individual to explore.
Yeah.
How are we raising Xander? We're raising him in a way that, it has a lot in common with Christian values.
Yeah.
Like the basics.
Yeah.
Like, how do you want to be treated in the world? Guess what? That's how you treat other people.
Right.
Kindness, respect,
Yeah.
right? Like, and respect for everyone, not
Right.
for, we have different varying levels of respect for different people based on what they think or believe or whatever. No. Respect is universal because they're human beings, right? And it goes beyond human beings, right? That animals, plants, our natural environment, all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But what's also interesting there is, like, I think we don't, I guess, we've just, it feels very similar, if I'm being transparent. It feels very similar to my own upbringing, minus the guilt, minus some of the dogmatic kind of things. But what I also find interesting is my husband being born and raised through college in China.
Yeah. So, like, totally agnostic, right?
Well, yeah, but we also see the world, like, these two worlds actually work well together. Because if you go back to kind of like Confucianism, there are some basics in there that are, a decent way to live a life. And so that's where it works together. Sometimes it doesn't work together so well. There's the I, being raised in America, there's a very big I. And in Asia, it's like, it's the big we and a small I.
Right.
And that's where I think there's some, and that's even as parents, right? There's times where, we've had to agree, like, hey, there's elements of our son's personality. He's got big energy, big personality. And guess what? He lives in a culture that is going to require that in some instances. We want him to have a lot of energy behind who he knows himself to be and take a stand. And so we try to fan those flames, But it's strikingly similar.
Yeah. That's good. That's good. Because those are like some very core values. And I'm sure that's why you guys are together, right? You still have to, like, we obviously are attracted to differences, but at the core value, you have to share them with your partner. Otherwise, that does not bode well for your future.
Yeah. Okay. So tell me, so you and your wife, when you're, like, raising a family, she has a very different background than you.
Yes.
What does that look like?
Yeah. So my wife, she is like, she always says she's a white person with a little bit of color, which is true. At first she tried to claim that she was some Asian. I was like, no, you're not. But, like, so her, it is true. Like, her grandparents were all from other countries, but essentially her dad was white and her mom was, kind of a mix of different things, Spanish, Mexican, Filipino. And she was actually, her mom was born in the Philippines, but really, like, once her family came here, like, was very focused on integration, So for all intents and purposes, I see them as kind of like growing up as a Caucasian family with some Asian Filipino background, flavor or Hispanic flavor, that's kind of what it is.
Sure.
But, like, I think one of the biggest differences between my family and her family is very functional and warm and loving and, like, functional and positive, like, and I mean, I love my parents, and I know it's like they tried their best, but it's like I don't know that it's like I want to recreate my childhood for my parent for my children, right? And
Sure, sure,
so
sure.
like I think a lot of times it's kind of like uh for us, like I think we do share a lot of the values and what we care about instilling in our family, which I'm sure is similar to yours, kindness, respect, trying hard, having grit, all these things. But like how we motivate or try to get our kids to do this is different. I think
Mm,
like we've been having lots of conversations, especially as our child, they're getting older, right? Like 9 and 7. Like I think for me, I have been a little bit when I first was, pregnant, we were about to have kids. I was worried I would repeat some of the things with my parents, but actually like I've almost gone the opposite where I'm just like a little too hands off. And now as they're older, I'm kind of like, oh shit, I think
oh,
I have to actually bring a little tigerness into here. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
so it's kind of like, I think she's kind of like, well, they should just naturally do these things. I was like, well, you naturally did these things because you were like the perfect child, but like some kids need some more motivation,
Sure.
So
Yeah, yeah.
like,
These conversations are happening in our house right
right?
now.
Okay, yeah. It's
Oh,
like,
yeah.
and
Oh,
then so
yeah,
how
yeah.
do you push or motivate and what's too hard and what's not too hard? So we have been having lots of conversations and she's like, well, and I think especially now as our 9-year-old is in sports and you see like American cultural sports is like insane, right? Like
It is insane.
cray. And she's like, my wife was a natural athlete and she just naturally did it. And she just doesn't understand why my daughter doesn't do it. And I was like, she's just not going to do it. And it's like, I actually don't care about her being amazing at sports, but I want her to have esteem. And I don't want her to be the suckiest because that's not good for esteem. So,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
then you have to kind of force a kid who doesn't want to practice, right? So it's
That's
like, well,
right.
how do
That's
you do
right.
that?
Yep.
So, I mean, I don't think we don't have like, I think her and I are able to come to agreement, but I've had to like tell her, like, she's afraid to push because she thinks it's too hard on the child. And I'm like, oh, you have no idea. Like, I was like, you can push way harder. I'm like, look at me. I'm still here. I survived. You know what I mean? Like, so it's kind of like, I'm like, we can push, we can be loving, but we can still push. And I
Yes.
think she's like starting to like, she does it. I'm like, well, we are nowhere near the spectrum of pushing too hard. So we have to kind of
Right,
like
right,
come
right.
at it. So I don't know. Well, what is it like in your
Oh,
conversation?
it's so funny. I am more like your wife,
Okay. Yeah.
and
Yeah,
you are
exactly.
more like my
See? Yeah.
husband.
Because we know you can push hard a child, they won't break.
But it is very interesting. Like, I'm coming from this place of if he knows he is loved, that reservoir he can tap into for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
Right. And my husband's like, that's all well and good. That's fine. But he's going to practice his piano every day and it's going to be for 45 minutes. Right. And this is going to happen. And guess what? You're the one that plays the piano, me.
Yes.
And so you're in charge of that activity. Right. Like, and so he's just literally like,
Yeah.
do we agree on this? And I'm like, we agree.
Yes.
Because we've even seen, we had one experience where Xander was very interested in basketball.
Yeah.
And so we signed him up for after school basketball and it was really tough. He was kind of caving in on himself.
Yeah.
And it was really unpleasant to watch.
Yes.
And so much so where we pulled him out because we were like, no. This is the wrong example of like, if it had been me, I remember wanting to play Little League because I actually like the uniforms. And my mother was like, you can play Little League like your brothers, but you're going to play the whole season.
Yeah.
If you sign up, you're playing the whole season. And she claimed she never knew, but why would she be giving me this counsel, right? Like, she's like, David likes the uniforms. Okay, he's going to get like, and then sure enough, I did not want to continue. And she made me play the entire season and I did. And I'm glad I did.
Yeah.
But I also was, I wasn't terrible, right? I was coordinated enough to kind of do this.
Yeah.
So we saw this, we pulled him out of basketball and then we both I think I went a few times and my husband went literally every single day and they just like practiced bouncing a basketball, shooting hoops, like boom, until he could like do it.
Yeah.
And I think we pulled him out. That was probably kindergarten maybe.
Yeah.
So it's been a couple of years.
Yeah.
And this year he said, hey, I want to try basketball again. So we just signed him up again, like boom. But it's taken like a long time of like diligent practice, like all of this kind of stuff.
Yes.
And I've seen that and I've seen the diligence on the part of my husband and I'm just like, okay, that's amazing. And I'm in. You want to push? Push. That's
Yes.
great. Let's do this.
Yes. Yes. That's exactly what we're doing right now with volleyball with Charlie. You know, it's kind of
Okay.
like, we're going to do this and you don't want to, but we're doing this. And it's
Yeah.
like, not because we want her to make the A team. It's because we want, like, because what happens is then the child thinks, if I'm not good at something, I'll never get good at something, right? We want to show her that if you try, you can get better.
That's
you know?
right. That's
so
right.
like, that's kind of what I think Lisa and I have realized, that like, actually we do need to push, because a child, some children might naturally be diligent enough to do it themselves, but most children will not. They will not.
Yeah.
They'll be like, I suck at this, I'm not doing this anymore, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Where are your parents today in relationship to who you are, Lisa,
Yeah.
raising a family?
yeah.
How is it shaken out?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a really long journey, right? Kind of starting from like 15 years ago or whatever, when my mom said she was crying so much she was going to die. Like, and then there was a period of many years where we simply just barely saw each other, didn't talk about it, you know?
Okay.
And then kind of, you know, even when Lisa and I got married, you know, they chose not to come to our wedding. So that was probably like, I guess 10 years ago or so.
Okay.
And, but then, you know, the children do help, right? So and I was like, honestly, like very scared to tell my parents that we were trying to have kids. And I didn't even tell us I was 6 months pregnant with our first, cause it's like, it's so stressful to even have a child. I cannot deal with the stress of their negative reaction. I'm like,
Sure.
I can't deal with
Yeah. No, I get it.
But then, like, once she knew that was happening, I mean, she couldn't help herself, I think, or they couldn't help themselves to be excited, you know? So, yeah, the very first kind of family gathering we had was like after our daughter was born. That's when like my parents started coming in, you know? I mean, it's definitely not perfect. You know, I think we spent, you know, the last 5 years in Taipei. We kind of went there during COVID. My parents live there now. And so for the first time, Lisa had a lot of interaction with my family. She did say, she's like, if I had known this, she's like, I mean, she was joking. She was like, but before we were married, I'm like, you know, she's like, this explains so much. You know, so, and she had to like, I think she finally understood like some things my parents were unmovable. You know, like she also had to come to Jesus and my parents on her own, independently of me, you know, where there was kind of a climactic event that I was not a part of. I'm like, I don't even want to be part of that conversation. But like at the end, Lisa's like, okay, I get it. Like, I'm not even going to try it. I was like, yes, just understand there are limitations, you know, but at the same time, like my mom is a present grandma. They do what they can. They're limited, but they do what they can. You know, at this point, my father actually had a very serious illness, so he's actually bedridden now, but they're still a part of our lives. They love the children, you know, for sure. And they do see Lisa, they accept us as a family, you know. Would they ever choose this for me? No, but it is what it is, and they're moving on with it. So
actually, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yes.
I mean, yeah. I mean, like my husband would probably say, hey, you know what? It is what it is.
Yes.
Right? Like,
Yeah. It could definitely be worse. So, you know.
Oh, for sure. For sure. I mean, that they're present in your kids' lives are like, that's amazing.
Yes, they are. And they're like, they definitely love the kids. And they've, you know, had a lot of like these last years during COVID, us living over there, they've been able to form their own relationships with the kids. So, you know.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah. That's very cool. I want to pivot a little bit and talk about Out and Around.
Yes.
I'll let you set that up.
Sure. Out and Around started as like my own personal desire it was like a mix between my personal desire to travel the world, which is something that I think a lot of people can resonate with, and then also a desire, like a kind of outcome of like what I shared with you about coming out and feeling like I was the only, you know. And I think, again, I grew up in this Asian American Christian community. And so and then when I came out, all of a sudden I was surrounded by like non-Asian Americans, you know, like, and now I know a lot of Asian American queer people now, but like when I came out, for whatever reason, I just didn't, you know.
Sure.
So it was kind of like, I was trying to look for somebody like me, like my, you know, sure, Asian or just not Caucasian, just not somebody that I could resonate with. And so this idea came to be like, what if we traveled around the world and just met other queer people around the world, you know, especially in kind of like non-Western countries. That's what that was the original genesis of the idea. And then I was like, okay, well, you know, if we're going to do this, might as well go big. And like, and big in our world was like, let's just do a blog or whatever, you know? So we started kind of just interviewing people And then we kind of would capture it by video. Long story short, we ended up capturing like over 100 hours of footage. And then when we came home from our trip, we found some editors who were kind of taken by the story, and they turned it into a film. So that film became Out and Around, was our documentary, which our children are like, can I watch this? And we're still like, not yet. Because we definitely say a lot about my parents, and we want them to be mature enough to understand, kind of.
Sure. Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But yeah, so that was Out and Around. It was a travel of our, I don't remember how many countries, 14, 16 countries that we went to. We did like many dozens of interviews, a handful of them made into the film. And then we also had the fortunate opportunity to kind of do a TED Talk as a result of this film, which like that, that was back when TED was more popular, I guess, now. So that I think actually had a lot more exposure than the film itself, but the film also got a good run. We even got dubbed into Italian.
Fantastic. Yay.
At some point. So that was pretty cool. And it's free to watch now on YouTube. But that was like really came out of a personal desire to hear other people's stories. And, we really focused on Asia, kind of East Asia and also South Asia. And then we did kind of East Africa and then also South America. So we kind of picked people from all places.
Okay. Queer life around the world is clearly not, well, it's not what it's like here in the US.
Yeah.
I know from my own experience, not from actually traveling, but when I first moved to San Francisco, I worked with a nonprofit and produced a film that was actually talking to queer people in like places like Uganda and like places where it was actually not safe to be out.
Yeah.
And so tell me a little bit, like those don't all sound like places in the world you want to be out and around.
Yes, out and around, right? Exactly.
So like, did you worry about your safety when you were like, was that ever like a concern?
Yeah, I mean, East Africa for sure was challenging, because like we could not, like we were in Tanzania and Kenya, like we couldn't get anybody in Tanzania to speak to us, or, and even like they did speak to us, but they wouldn't be on camera. And we were always like, whatever you want, right? This is not worth us, the sake of the film to do that. But they would talk to us and we just kind of collect the stories and just kind of for our own understanding and just try to generalize it and stuff. So it's no joke over there, right? Like there's, and I think there we definitely were very conscious of not being out as much as we would have liked to, if you will,
Sure.
But I think in Asia or particularly South Asia, it's just hard to be a woman, like forget about, and I think it's interesting, like the gender thing in South Asia in particular was a big deal because my wife is, masculine looking and they genderize everything in South Asia, so she's constantly getting kicked out of like the bathrooms and all these things. Just the trains are divided by women and men sometimes too, like in India. So I think there it was just challenging to be a woman, and in fact, when we interviewed the gay men over there, like the criticism or I guess the way people make fun of them is like that they are like a woman. Like if you're a gay man, you're like a woman.
Right.
So they were also very pro gender equality because they felt like gender equality and LGBT equality were like together. Right.
Right.
So,
wow. Favorite places when you were traveling around?
I mean, I think some of our most memorable times was like probably Nepal and India because it's so different,
Yeah.
And I think, it's just so colorful, so chaotic. So like we also spent a lot of time in the mountains in Nepal, so magnificent. But like, so that was amazing. I would like to take the kids back at some point to do that,
Did the altitude ever get to you?
Yeah, it did.
Oh, it did. Okay.
Did. Yeah, I think you were, and then, we did the Himalayas there and then we did, Kilimanjaro in Africa and like the altitude totally took me down.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't done anything like the Himalayas, but we did go to a place in China called Zhouzhaigo. And when we flew into the airport, it was at elevation. It just felt like they opened up the door to the airplane and somebody sucked the air out of my lungs. And I was just like, ugh. And I was in marathoning running shape at the time. So I was like, oh yeah, I got this. No big deal. But then we would go on these hikes and like, my husband's like, oh yeah, walking just fine. And I'm like literally sick. I can
Yeah.
barely move. And then there's like 85-year-old, granny that's like passing me and like, oh, hey, are you okay? Blah, blah, blah. And like off she goes. And I was just like, you've got to be kidding me. This
Yeah.
is so humiliating. But yeah, I'm one of those.
It strikes people
altitude.
differently.
Yeah, it gets me. It gets me good. Okay. So you traveled around the world for a whole year with Lisa.
Yep.
What was that like?
Well, I decided I was not going to propose to her until partway through the trip to see how it went. So we were not yet engaged or married when we started the trip, and my like thing in my head was like, okay, if this goes well, like we'll know. You know what I mean? Like either it's gonna fall apart, or it's like, this is like a true test.
Well, yeah, it's like a legit test.
Yes, and also I think not only that, but actually doing a very serious project together was a huge endeavor. Because it was a serious project. We did spend like a lot of our time doing that, and not only filming, but also raising money, building social media, marketing, like all the things you would do with a small business, only for like this passion project,
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, the first month of that was working together was very rough because we came from such different worlds. I came from like corporate tech world, and she was a social worker, and she had no idea what I did, and I had no idea what she did. We had no appreciation, And then all of a sudden, we're kind of doing this project together, and she's like, "You're a slave driver." she used to think I was very lazy because she'd be like, "Aren't you good?" Whatever. But like I think she did appreciate like how hard of a worker I was, from that process. And then for me, I appreciated how good she was just reaching out to people, building connections, interviewing people, like, because you need to bring people into this project, right? Not only to interview, but to raise funds, to get the word out. And like, she was so good at that. And I was like, that's part scares me a lot, So we there was that element. And then of course the travel itself, there's like 20,000 decisions to be made. So, I mean, I would say the first 2 months was rough. And then we kind of figured out separation of responsibilities.
For sure.
And then I think I proposed to her like around month 3 or 4.
Wow. Okay. And then how much later did you get married?
After we came back, like then we started planning the wedding, and then we got married. Yeah. So
okay. Did you get married in San Francisco?
We got married in Guerneville, if you know where that is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And was it in 2016?
Yes, we got married like right when like marriage equality and all that jazz. So we planned like we didn't know, we planned like a year in advance. And so we had multiple weddings, kind of like the big party wedding. And then we went to City Hall and did all that too. And then we got married again in Taiwan. We got married many times.
Oh, wow. Very cool.
For immigration reasons.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I was asking because we got married at City Hall in San Francisco in 2016.
Nice.
So
nice. It was a very exciting time. We felt very fortunate. Like, I mean, we just feel really fortunate that we have just like fallen into this time in this world where we're able to kind of just be at a place where we're able to get married, be at a place where it's relatively kind of accessible to have children and like common, if you will, like a lot of people our age can do it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Wow. If you were to remake the documentary now, are there other places you would go?
I almost think it would be interesting to go to different places in the States, in the US.
Yeah.
Like, because I think when you live I clearly live in a bubble here in the Bay Area, and like most of my friends are in this bubble. It's kind of like, okay, like I just remember visiting my brother. He was going to school in San Luis Obispo, or maybe we did a film event. We did a out and around screening at Cal Poly, San Luis Obispo.
Okay.
So it was within the last 10 years, right? So not like eons ago. And I just remember the kids who attended, the stories they were saying. I was like, is this the same country I live in? Like it was still like really hard for them, even in a big school like this in Cal Poly, which you would think surely is big enough to accommodate, but of course it's like a more rural area. There's a lot of, kind of like ag out there. And it's just like, yeah, it's like, okay, we actually, like, we're not just talking about, the favelas of Brazil that are struggling here. I mean, of course, like, yes, there's a different level of struggle, but like also in our own country, there are lots of pockets where it's still not easy. So.
Yeah. I have long thought that And I don't know in what expression it would take, but I like your idea about going to different places in the United States
Yeah.
because it's so different everywhere that you go.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, there's places, you know, I mean, if I'm being absolutely honest, there's some places I don't feel comfortable going. And I'm not saying that from I only land the airplane only lands in blue
Yeah.
states. I'm not saying it from that
Yeah.
standpoint. I'm just saying like there are some parts that it's just not, I don't want to say it's unfriendly, but like it could be uncomfortable if you
Yes.
landed with like your spouse and your child
Yes.
and wanted to just be treated like another family.
Yes.
I think
Oh
it
yeah, I think
changes
there's
a
lots
lot.
of places in the States that would feel that way.
Oh yeah, I mean when we go to Japan,
Yeah.
we definitely get the and you know this Asian culture,
Yeah.
right? You really don't know what they think,
Right.
right? In China, you know what they think because they're talking about you anyway. It doesn't matter,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Good, bad, the ugly, it doesn't matter. They're
Yeah.
talking, and that's fine. And it also actually feels pretty inclusive, if I'm being honest. Like
Yeah.
there's a curiosity there, and so long as there's curiosity, I interpret that as being a little bit open, even though it might not be as open as it seems. Whereas in Japan, it just kind of feels like, you don't get any reaction. And the only reaction, if you do get one, is like, a slightly prolonged look,
Yeah.
which doesn't last long because it's not polite to stare at
Right.
people.
Yeah.
So it's like,
Yeah.
but there's times where you get that look and you look and then they like turn away and it's like, oh, oops, sorry, I got
Yeah.
caught, right?
Yeah.
But even that to us doesn't feel that uncomfortable.
Right.
Whereas there are places, even in airports in the United States,
Yeah.
where it's just kind of like, you don't have to keep looking at us. You
Right.
can choose to look the other way.
Yes.
I don't know what you're thinking,
Yeah.
right? You can say something. But then there are also other experiences that we have where we're in an airport. We travel a lot. So we're in an airport and we get the positive reinforcement
Yeah.
from others where they look at you, they smile,
Yeah.
right? There's like there's an act of almost gratitude. I don't know if it's but it's kindness. It's
Yeah.
certainly kindness where it's
Yeah.
like, and it feels very validating. Like
Yeah.
they don't have to say like, oh, we think your little gay family's all cute,
Yeah.
right? Like they don't say that, but it's like that's the word. It's an acknowledgement
Right.
that like, okay, I know what's happening
Right.
here and I'm smiling
it.
back at it.
Yes.
Yeah, I like it, right?
Yes.
And that's pretty cool.
Yes. Yes. And I do think I think for gay like gay men with kids, right? Like you're just even a dad with kids, like a straight dad with kids alone is already like,
Whoa,
so,
yeah,
like
yeah.
it does. I do feel like the family thing is a little bit easier. But like being in Taiwan, my kids would get asked all the time because they were mixed kids. If they're with me and I understand, like I can understand, right? Everybody's asking them, "Where's your father from? Where's your father from?" Right? Because they see them with me, they assume I'm married to a white guy. And so my daughter has gotten very adept, and she actually likes it. She likes explaining the whole thing. She likes the shock value. I told you, Senator kind of.
Oh yeah. I dig her actually.
Like she's like, oh, I got two moms, and they're like, what? Your Chinese is bad. She's like, no, I have two moms. She was finding this in Chinese, right? So they're like, no, I'm serious. So my other mom is from America. Well, I'm from America too, but fine, whatever.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
So yeah, but yeah, I'm sure it is what it is. So,
but it hasn't affected them in a negative way.
I don't think so. I think my daughter's pretty cool with it because she likes being kind of unique.
Yeah.
I don't know about my son. I've asked him this, and he doesn't really respond. I don't know. What about Xander? Like, how does he feel about it?
Oh gosh. There was a time period at school where and it kind of caught us off guard actually, because I think it was kindergarten.
Yeah.
Right. And we went into his kindergarten class because they would like have their celebration day, and Xander's was he's summer birthday. So it was usually during the year.
Yeah.
And like I was just completely unprepared, and I should have been prepared. I mean, like I totally should have been prepared, but I was not. It caught me off guard. I was not expecting a 5-year-old to be like, but where's Xander's mom?
Right.
And I was like,
yes.
What the
yeah, but
right?
It's not like he probably just said it like out of curiosity, right?
He did. The child totally did.
Yeah.
Right. And then in the moment, I'm like sitting there, and we were saved, literally saved by another child.
Yeah.
Okay. And she's like, she told this other child, she's like, Xander has 2 dads.
Yeah.
And she was like, and I have 3. And I was just like, oh yeah, because like her parents divorced,
Okay,
like
yeah,
now, and then married again. So it was like, oh my gosh, she does have 3 dads,
Yeah.
And she saved us. She saved me that day because like it was just like, wow. And then it was also a wonderful moment where an adult didn't have to, an adult to a child.
Right.
It was literally the children's community working it out.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yes.
But there was a long time, like there was a time period where he would ask, like, and I think he was young, very young. I want to say 4. These questions, like 4, do I have a mom? Do I blah, 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 da, 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 da. And then we had to have like that conversation about, and now I'm going to make it sound all adult, but the conversation where it's, a mother is a role, right, that you play, right? And like, there's nothing missing in your house. You have 2 men as your parents, but you still have 2 parents.
Yes.
And you still have like, there's a motherly role in our family, right?
Yeah.
And it's just provided through 2 different people.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I like that. And I think like, also I say like, you often wish you had another sister, like talking to my daughters, like you don't have another sister. Sometimes you're going to wish you had one, but you don't. But you have a sibling, right? So it's probably the same thing. Like you're probably going to sometimes wish you had a dad, but like you don't, but there's nothing missing, right? Like to that point, it's just like your family's different. You don't have another sister. So that's right.
But what's interesting for me, and I don't know how you feel about this, but there was something about the question that struck me deep inside.
Yeah. You mean the other boy or when Xander asked?
No, when Xander asked, where it did, I guess it, I still reacted emotionally to it. Like, oh gosh, I don't want him thinking he doesn't have something.
Right. Yeah.
Like something's missing from this family unit.
Yeah.
And I think that questioning went back to my upbringing.
Right.
All of the times that said like, oh yeah, in that missionary manual, like if you masturbate, it means you're gay, right? Or if you do these things, like these are sins, right? And like you're not coming, like there's a special place for you in hell, right? Like, and it kind of struck those areas, and I had to quickly, get my wits about me and like get my brain to kick in and say like, whoa, that's okay, you can feel that. Yeah. But you also need to like thank it for sharing and move on.
Yes.
Because there is no lack in our house. Like there's no, and I think even if you were to, I don't know, he's a very well-adjusted kid.
Right.
Has a great
head
even
on if he wasn't, it doesn't have to do with that, right?
Correct.
Our child has their things, but it's like that's just that.
Yes.
So that is what it is. I mean, it's our own feelings, right? About like when they ask about the dad, or I feel like, oh, my son needs more man. And I do think there's an element of like, you want them to be socialized with other genders, and you probably want Xander to have also adult female role models and stuff too. But like, just like I want my kids to have a male adult role models.
Although I don't know how to go do that.
I don't either. Like,
I have no idea how to do that.
You got to make friends with lesbians. That's what you got to do. Or like single women who like have the time to like take your kid under their wing, But yeah.
But we're kind of social recluses. Like, are you guys really social as a couple and a family?
I mean, I would only say we're half social. Like, I mean, I'm not like great about doing like my own things, to be honest. So we do a lot of family things. So I guess from that standpoint, just by nature of hanging out with straight families, you're going to get a man and a woman, But like in Taiwan, we proactively found this LGBT group because we wanted to make sure, like we felt like our kids were so othered as mixed children. And there's mostly gay men in that group. And because like I think to a certain extent, they needed each other more. They had to come to the States to get surrogacy and all that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
So like one of them is coming to stay with us this next weekend. And so there's like, we're friends with several gay dad Asian couples, so they like see that and have that. But I mean, they're in Taiwan, so we're here now. So here,
Yeah.
I think it's just more by nature. Like we do have a brother-in-law, who's very
Okay.
warm and friendly with our children,
Okay. Okay. That's good. That's good.
So, but yeah, I mean, I think also beyond that, it's kind of like, maybe putting him onto like, I do proactively see like if there is going to be a one-on-one piano lesson, is there a male teacher kind of thing, So like,
Yeah.
I think
Oh,
it's not
that's
easier to
interesting.
find
So
female teachers.
Xander does have, he
Yeah.
does have a female
Yeah.
piano teacher.
Yeah.
And I was pausing and thinking like, okay, who are his female role models that he's around, like fairly,
I mean, I've seen
around a lot?
teachers.
Teachers for sure. But my mother and my sister,
Yeah.
we've been doing like a Sunday Zoom for years.
Yeah.
And that's been awesome. And then we've spent most, if not most of his birthdays, in San Diego with them.
Yeah.
And he gets very excited about, being around them. And, so I guess we have some of that, but like we are kind of,
I mean, it's like art, right? Like, of course, we hang out with more women than we do men, but I think he's gonna be okay. They're gonna be okay. Like, as long like, and over time, I think one of the things to remember is like at some point, it's not even up to us. It's like who their coach is gonna be and who they're, you know what I mean? It's like it's just gonna happen, or it's not gonna happen, and they're gonna be okay no matter what.
That's right. Yeah. Yes.
Like we can try our best, but I also don't think we have to like bend over backwards, to make it
okay, time in Taiwan. There's like a part of me sometimes that's just like, oh gosh, I would just love to spend some time
in Asia.
As a family unit. I just think there's a lot there's just a lot to experience there.
Yeah.
What's the longest you've stayed in Taiwan?
5 years. We lived there for 5 years. It's pretty long.
5 years.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So we stayed all the way through COVID. We only moved, that doesn't make sense. No, maybe it's 3 years. Okay. I'm confused now because it was 2020 to 2024, whatever, that many number of years.
Okay.
COVID started in 2020, right?
Yes.
Okay. So it's like that was when we moved, and we moved back in 2024. Yeah.
Okay.
So, so I've never lived in Asia myself. I was born and raised in the Midwest, and then came over here. So it was like a big deal for me to I wouldn't have done it if it was more for COVID. But then having done it, I'm really happy. Like, one, it was great for me, I think, to also just like feel like this is my country too, like not just my parents. And to find my own community, including queer community in Taiwan. And then secondly, I think with young kids, Asia is a lot easier, to be honest. You can just get more support, and it's just more accessible, and it's easier,
It is.
And certainly during COVID, and then thirdly, my parents were there, so we were able to kind of spend more time with them. And then fourthly, like the Mandarin, which I think you were trying to get Xander to learn too, right? So that was my son's first language. So, now we're actively trying to make sure they don't lose it. So we're still trying to probably spend the next couple of summers there. And my son is in an after school Mandarin program, which he hates, but whatever. We're like, you need to go because you're going to.
And yes, he does need to go.
Yeah, because I think a 9-year-old can retain, but like at 5, 6, 7, it can still go away.
Ooh, yeah. We had to choose Mandarin or Spanish for school. And originally we were like, Xander was like, I want to speak Spanish. And we were just like, yeah, there's some decisions your parents make.
Yeah. I was like, no, don't do Spanish. You go in Spanish.
Yeah. And but here's the thing. So we were like Mandarin. It's Mandarin. And then it was over this summer. We just saw him like trying to speak Spanish here, Spanish there, and we were just like, oh my gosh, like, he was never doing this with like, because we had him in Mandarin school on the weekend for a while, and like it was just kind of like, it's just like, oh man. And then my husband was just like, really, you are half and half, like what are you like, what, like how is this possible? Right? He was having that experience, but then we went back and we changed it. It's like, just go speak Spanish, but we signed him up for Chinese on the weekend. You're going to Chinese school on the weekend, and that's it. You absolutely learn Spanish at school. That's fine. Yeah. But it's also not immersion, so I'm just
that's the hard thing. Like honestly, my son refuses to speak Chinese here in the States, And it like it took honestly like almost a full month of living there before I even heard a word of Chinese coming out of his mouth, even though he was in Taiwanese camp the whole time, so he had to, but he just has a lot of I think he's a little bit of a perfectionist. So if he can't say it well, he doesn't want to speak.
Wow.
But I don't, they'll do what they're going to do with it, but I want them to at least have the base. So we're going to keep him for Chinese school at least another year, and then probably let him depart.
Yeah. Very cool. Okay. I want to bring some things back to kind of where we began.
Yes.
So, you went from tech to financial planning.
Yes.
Wow. How the hell does that happen?
It actually makes sense with a lot of the things that I just shared, my story,
Yeah.
I think basically during our trip around the world and making this film, it was just an amazing experience, like from multiple levels. One, to kind of be doing something that felt very personal and impactful, like to be able to be talking to people one-on-one and hearing their stories, to be working with my wife, to be traveling around the world and being location, just kind of like having this flexibility and being able to have this adventurous life, that really set me on and I never once missed my corporate life, and I mean, I had a good situation in my corporate life. It's not like I hated it. It's not like I was working I had great managers. I had a very great company. In fact, they helped make this film come to reality. They helped fund it. They really helped make this film, but the work itself, I just knew, it just was not what it was just work, but then of course I had the financial reality of being the breadwinner for our family. My wife, left her work to take care of the kids after our first was born. Cause I was working abroad and stuff. So, long story short, how did it happen? That year made me realize I didn't want to be in corporate forever. And then that led me to my own personal financial planning, where it was okay, how do I get out of this,
Yeah.
That led me to the whole financial independence movement, and just how do you kind of save money? And and then it kind of as I kind of got closer and closer to my number, if you will, it was kind of I don't want to not I have a lot to give, and I want to do something. I want to work. It's not that I don't like to work. I actually like to work. But I want all those things that I experienced before, right? Which is impact, doing work that I enjoy, doing it with doing my wife, and having the flexibility to have an adventure as well, And so it's okay, that's kind of what led me to financial planning. Was personal finance itself was a topic I enjoyed. It would allow me to work one-on-one with people in a very intimate way, and I thought a lot about what impact meant. You could either go broad or you can go deep. And I thought, I'm the kind of person that's going to enjoy, I don't care, whatever, millions of followers. I'm going to care that I have a really strong relationship with 50 to 100 people, and make a meaningful impact in their life. So I wanted to go deep there. It was, I left corporate life in 2019 and have been on this journey since, and started Modern Family Finance in around 2020. So it's been a 5-year journey now. And it's something that I've been really trying to build with intentionality, where it's how do we thrive? How do we help our clients thrive? How do we make sure that we as the practitioners also thrive, which means being mindful about how we grow. And it's hard, right? I have to balance my ambition with life, right? And so, the Asian tiger woman in me is well, let's go harder, but it's okay, no, what are we trying to do here? And I just set out, and I just really told my wife and told myself, I never want to build this business thinking I want to get here. I want every day to be this is where I want to get now, the hours I work, the people I work with, how I work with them, this, it has to be now. It's not, I'm unwilling to just defer. So that's what we've tried to do. It's not always perfect. It definitely has its ups and downs and challenges, but it's working, and I want to do this until I can't do this anymore. So that's also changed a lot of how I feel about money. I think when I was in my corporate life, I kept just staring at the number, because it was once I hit this number, I can leave. And now I rarely look at my own net worth. I'm just actually, that doesn't matter to me, because I want to do this till my brain goes and I can't do it anymore. You know what I mean? Which means okay, I'll have an income, which means I can relax. And it's I'm not trying to get anywhere anymore. I'm just trying to live the best life now and practice it now, you know?
Oh,
So that's what
you're like, that's the song of my heart.
yes.
Yeah. That's amazing. Do you ever run up against like, okay, what it's like to be a woman in finance, what it's like to be, LGBT in finance? Do you ever run up against those things?
I mean, I do in a positive way, right? Like, so
Okay,
I
that's
am
awesome. That's
like,
great.
and I mean, in the sense that like I've surrounded myself. I mean, to be honest, like building your own practice is it's a solo endeavor, which I'm sure like owning your own business, you feel quite alone sometimes. And I tried to be intentional to find other people who are women, LGBTQ, or people who share similar philosophy in how they're building their business. So I've just sought those people out because I just have not cared about, like, I don't care about making a name for myself in this industry per se. I want to have a good practice, great clients, and cool colleagues that I find. But it's like beyond that, I'm like, I'm not networking just to network, you know?
That's right.
It's like,
That's right.
if we resonate, cool. Like, that's it, right? So that's actually it's a really big burden off because I felt like, when you're building your career and like, if you're trying to make a career out of it, you have to like, oh, I got to get to know this person. I don't really like them, but I got to get to know them, right? Like all that stuff. So,
sure.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. That's a wrap. Well, congratulations on Modern Family Finance.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah. This was fun.
I really love your story.
Thank you.
And I dig the parallels. It's like,
we're all just trying to find, thread the line, right?
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Coded in Gold. If you liked this episode, please like, comment, or subscribe to help grow this community. Links to follow the podcast and our guests are in the show notes. Next week, I'll be sitting down with Jeffrey Shaw, a photographer, coach, and author of the book Selling to the Rich. You won't want to miss it. Thank you, and take good care.